Welcome back to the Jewish-Anglican. It's been a while once again. I got a cold, sore throat, so if my voice sounds different, it's because of that. My family has been joking. I'm going through a second puberty, so maybe not. In this video, we are going to be describing the idea of what if the Anglosphere united into a single country. This is more of a what if video, kind of story, fiction. I am a fiction writer, haven't published anything yet, but this kind of gives you a taste of what I am. Let's begin. The Imperial Federation of Albion will be a combination of states. You would have your Canadian provinces, your American states, your Australian states, and just New Zealand as one state. Plus, you would have the UK, and the UK would be divided into a couple different states. Here's the map of it. You would have Northern Ireland, or Ulster, I guess, Scotland, Wales, Wessex, Northumbria, Mercia, and the Islamic Commune of London. That's a joke. In this what if, I will explain to you what would cause this scenario. The year is 2025. Nigel Farage has become the Prime Minister of the UK. Trump is President of the US. Everything is as normal. Starting late December, numerous terrorist attacks happen all across the Anglosphere. 5 countries allied together to stop these wherever they came from. I won't tell you where it came from because I don't think that's the smartest idea. I don't want to get into modern day politics, and plus, I don't even know where this would happen. With all these nations now weakened from these terrorist attacks and now together hunting down the terrorists, they formally become the Imperial Federation of Albion. One nation with one constitution with one emperor. The American people are looking towards Prince William for 2 reasons. They're worried about who the next president is going to be, and they're worried about the disaster that comes from elections. So they're kind of becoming more and more sympathetic towards monarchism. Second, Prince William has been working under his father as a mediator with the rest of the Anglosphere. Charles, in both this story and in real life, isn't the most popular person. He's made a lot of problems, if you've noticed. A lot. Since we're getting into what if alternate history, I feel like Doctor Who is a good accessory. Multiple elections are held throughout the Anglosphere. The first election is the adoption of the new Constitution, which is very much the American Bill of Rights with a new governmental structure that is a hybrid between the parliamentary systems of Kanzuk and the presidential system of America. So, kind of like the French style of governance with both a president and prime minister. Get to more detail later about that. And of course, the British monarchy state. All the people and the legislations approve of this, except for the UK Parliament. The UK Parliament is against this. So, King Charles III, on his deathbed, does what every Charles does before him, and abolish the Parliament.
To the first Galactic Empire, for a safe and secure society.
Now, William is emperor, the first emperor of the Anglosphere. Or technically, but still, the 5th William of England. The primary, then you have a bunch of runner-up elections for different former countries. In the US, you have Trump versus RFK. RFK did slightly pull against in this timeline, but eventually Trump usurps him because of how he handled the war. Over in the UK, they just choose Nigel Farage again. In Canada, Pierre Poilievre returns after Mark Carney has an abysmal time as prime minister. So who will now be president? Trump, Farage, Pierre, or even the Australian Prime Minister, Dutton. First, Pierre did have a very nice allure to him. He could speak to all of the members of Albion because he did seem very charismatic and understanding of their needs. But in the end, It really came to two very charismatic figures, Trump and Farage. Trump was popular throughout, due to being the president of the most powerful nation, the U.S. A lot of people did not like how brash he was and how improper, which was getting tiresome. And with Farage, many Americans thought he sounded much fancier, mostly just due to him being British. In the end, it came down to Farage and President Trump. Who was going to win? And by the way, in this, the Electoral College is still used, a slightly modified version, where it's more congressional districts, like how Nebraska and Maine uses it. 66% of the vote. Nigel Farage wins the presidency of the Imperial Federation of Albion. Okay, let's talk about legislation. There is a parliament consisting of a lower house and upper house. The lower house is the House of Commoners, where which is very similar to the British House of Commoners and the House of Representatives. In it, depending on the lowest state's population total, so let's say it's still Wyoming in this, you would have one representative per 570,000 people. So you have I think my math is correct. You have about 700 some representatives in the House of Commons. In the Senate, it consists of one senator per state, and that is 76 senators. Then there are the Lord Senators. Lord Senators are different. You see, what I did is I divided up the IFA, Imperial Federation, into 13 cultural regions. So you Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and UK are all cultural regions, and then with the US I broke it up even further with the cultural region of the Midwest, of the South, of the Rockies, of Utah, because Utah's weird, so it kind of gets its own spot along with Texas and Hawaii. So there's about 13 Senate Lords, or something like that. 13 Senate Lords, and they're considered the actual lords, like how the House of Lords in the UK used to be. The president do? The president would have to handle military and foreign affairs. He can deal with domestic affairs, specifically like rebellion and domestic terrorism that is within his jurisdiction, but he also appoints the prime minister. The prime minister must be appointed by the president, and then the parliament has to approve it. What's interesting, I decided, is that he can approve any member of cabinet. He can appoint any cabinet members, but he has to get parliament's approval on the prime minister. In this event, Nigel Farage becomes the president of the IFA. In the IFA, who does he decide to be his prime minister? He decides that Donald Trump should be the prime minister, because he's still rather popular and to appease the former Republicans. This makes Donald Trump the first prime minister of the IFA. The parliament barely approves Trump of being the prime minister. It's a barely. I'll get into the different political parties soon. So let's get into the different political parties. First, you got the Conservative Party. Pretty much pulls in a lot of different conservatives from a lot of different countries. Now, some did leave them to go off to other parties or more moderate parties because it was a little much. Now, what's interesting about the Conservative Party is that there's really two factions or two wings. You have the Royalists and the Republicans, both in the Conservative Party, which is a little confusing. But there are Republicans who do not want to be in the Liberal or Labor parties, we'll get into soon, but there's no really else to go. So the Conservative Party might break soon. It has about 190 seats in Parliament. Oh, no, 190 seats in the House of Commons. The United Labour Party is a slightly less LGBT plus party, like how the Democrat and Labour parties and even the Canadian Liberal Party is. It's leaning more towards left on social and welfare issues, but is far more nationalistic, especially after the terrorist attacks and war. It's seen more as a party of it tries to be a party of the working class. it tries to harken back to Blairism and New Dealism with FDR. It tries to go back to that old school way. We'll see if it works. Current head of it is very much like Keir Starmer, Josh Shapiro kind of people. Also 190 seats. Then you have the Liberal Democrats. It's a lot of layovers from the Democratic Party and liberal parties throughout the Anglosphere. Has very similar in social issues and economics. They are less nationalistic. The heads would be AOC and Trudeau. And also comment below who else do you think would be in these parties. That'd be great. They have 101 seats in Parliament. Of the Square Deal Party, they're kind of the corporatist party, because I thought it'd be fun to add some corporatism, but I also think they would have some more moderate former Democrats, former laborers, maybe, like kind of conservative Labor Party members and conservative Democrats, plus some like moderate former Republicans and former conservatives, like people who are kind of conservative in some things but still want more like focus on infrastructure and environmentalism. It's stuff like that. They have about 97 seats. Personally, who do you think would be the head of it or even be in it? Because I'm not sure if there would be people. Then at Gabriel Reed LL9XQ, he came up with the Regional Growth Party, which are a states' rights kind of party for different nations and states that want stronger autonomy. So kind of think of the Scottish National Party. It's just for multiple different groups and ethnic groups and states. I can also kind of see the Libertarians coming in here and really adopting it in some ways. Then you would have the Reform Party, but the Reform Party is different from the current Reform UK and the current Reform US Party. They're far more far right, I guess you could call it, and conservative. They would have people like Rupert Lowe and Stephen Crowder. The reason I picked Stephen Crowder is because he's half Canadian, so maybe you could pull in some more ultra-nationalistic Canadians. Reform Party, 50 seats. Any more ideas for how many seats there should be, or how many, and who should be, and what current-day politicians should be in what party? Comment below. Now, at first, Farage was thinking of doing a switcheroo with Trump, because, hypothetically, if the president resigns or dies, the prime minister becomes president. So Farage at first thought, oi, what if I resign, Trump becomes president like he wants to, and then he appoints me as prime minister? But then they kind of thought that one through and realized that might put more stress onto the nation, onto the new nation, and they didn't think it was worth it. At first, Farage was really popular in the cities because they thought he'd be less conservative due to being a Brit. They were wrong. Trump, as prime minister, continues to enact a lot of deportations in the IFA, especially in Britain. His main focus does drift from Mexico to the Islamic problems in Britain. So this does help out them quite a lot. It even helps them fly under the radar from the media. Not forever. The media does pick up and start to bash him once again. Farage attempts to remove the IFA from World Health Organization, or the WHO, and replace it with the AHC, Anglo Health Central, which would be a nationalized version of the WHO. He also keeps trying to denounce China and work against China with a lot of trade deals, which does help him from the old MAGA supporters. It gets him even more popularity amongst them. Then he does something that rattles the world. In April of 2028, he meets with Zelensky of Ukraine and says to them, I know back when the US existed, like Trump was going to give you peace between Russia and Ukraine. I don't care. You're on your own. This didn't just shock the world, this shocked the IFA, especially Trump. And this is where the tensions start to really vibrate. June 12th, 2028. Things are going very well in the IFA. The two capitals, London and DC, are peacefully existing. Then, the Sons of Liberty attack. The Sons of Liberty is a domestic terrorist group from Boston and Belfast wanting Irish and American independence from Britain, because they think Britain still controls everything. Nigel Farage calls for an immediate search for these terrorists. While doing so, an IFA soldier accidentally shot an Irish Republican from the Republic of Ireland. This caused technically the First Anglo-Irish War. Farage, Emperor William, and the Irish Prime Minister all sit down to kind of discuss things and go over the attacks, and at first, it was going well. It was a clear misunderstanding. It was very chaotic and near the Irish border. Farage is very much handling with the Sons of Liberty in Boston. The Northern Irish are a little trickier. But then the Sons of Liberty started to aid the IRA. And then the war continues. Emperor William kept making speeches for the Irish royalists within Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. While that, Farage kept threatening the Sons of Liberty and taking them down in Boston. Now, Northern Ireland is far trickier. At first, during the war, the Anglos didn't think they were doing so well. In fact, some American soldiers believed they were fighting on the wrong side, and some even tried to disobey orders, but they were, of course, arrested. Farage failed to make a functioning speech to the Americans who distrusted the new empire. Fortunately, Emperor William said, "You may not like the crown or me, but you are fighting for the rights that your ancestors granted you. We still have our rights. Let's liberate our Irish cousins." It did help simmer down the tension. By December 2028, the Anglo-Irish War ended as a ceasefire. A single county did come into the Northern Irish territory now. Then a bigger discussion occurred if Ireland should join the IFA. A united Ireland under the British Crown could be historic. The the Bostonian Sons of Liberty thought this was treason done by the Irish. The Irish were seriously considering joining the IFA since the EU was starting to crumble a bit here and there. Half of the Irish Parliament did vote in favor of joining the IFA. The Irish population was a little more divisive and violent, but there was a large majority voting in favor of the IFA. They especially loved the idea of having the right to freedom of speech, but also still being under the crown of their ancestors. They realized the British aren't as bad. This new Imperial Federation of Albion is different from the British Empire in some ways, and completely continuing that great enduring spirit, but now with American rights. So, an election was held, and Ireland officially wanted to join the Imperial Federation of Albion, finally uniting Ireland after decades upon decades of civil war. But then the EU had something to say. The EU said, "If Albion annexes Ireland, even consensually, we will wage war." Sorry for that French accent. That was. So there lays the standstill. President Farage was able to negotiate with President Macron, who was the newest president of the EU, because the EU decided to have a ceremonial president recently. The IFA and the EU decided that Ireland will have another election in 2030 to decide. And whatever its decision, all parties must respect it. So with this said, will Nigel Farage run for president once more? Will Donald Trump continue to be his prime minister? This is up to you guys in the comments. Hopefully you like this what if story. It was fun to write. Who do you think? Will Trump remain prime minister? Would he leave due to the tensions between him and Farage? What parties will form in this war? What coalitions? How will the world continue to react? Will the EU federalize because of this? Will Ireland really join by 2030? Comment below. Also, one thing I did not do is the judicial. I did not talk about it, mostly because I like the American system of judiciary where the president decides the judge, but I wasn't sure if the prime minister or the president should do that in this, so also comment below. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. God bless.